Welcome to Fleet News Group podcast, where we talk about circular economy, sustainability, and how fleets are transitioning to a lower emissions operation. Today I'm talking with Dave Sanders, which is a cool name for a cool guy who co-founded Bestrane 20 years ago on a business model that has reducing waste in industry at its heart, including in the transport and logistics sectors. So welcome, Dave.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. Very happy to be here.
Firstly, for context, just tell us a bit about the foundation of Bestrane and what its core offering for fleets is all about.
Yeah, thank you. Look, it seems like a long time ago, probably because it is, but I grew up in the consulting world. And in that world, it was exciting because you got to see lots of different companies doing lots of different things. However, with the consulting model, you rarely got an opportunity to stay and see the results of your advice or your actions. So I really set up Bestrane to address that problem and have a fewer number of much longer term clients. And part of that was not only just seeing how clients used technology or trying to understand the sort of business processes they were trying to enable, but also see how they were reacting to, different industry changes. And sustainability, certainly over the last 10 years in particular, has really proven that out. So that, as we have clients that are long-term clients, we become part of their decision-making to try and address those sorts of problems.
So in a nutshell, then, a fleet operator or, anyone from any industry can come to you with a problem or a goal, and you provide the consultation, the solution, and the service. Is that right? And
Yeah.
who are some of your customers?
Oh, yeah. So certainly people like, if I look at Origin Energy, for example, who are, they're right in the crosshairs of the sustainability issue right now. They're in an industry that is struggling to understand what it means to be sustainable in supplying gas. As an example, they supply other types of energy right now as well in reaction to that. But from a fleet perspective, they've got lots of vehicles running around doing, providing a service to a lot of Australia that doesn't have a great alternative right now. That may not be the case in the future, but right now. So from a sustainability perspective, they're trying to understand how can we do more with the minimum fleet necessary, and that's really the sort of services that Bestrane provide, not only on a one-time basis, but more importantly, over a much longer period of time.
We were talking the other day, and you were telling me about a business unit you've spun out of Bestrane called Mobile Doc. Yeah, what is it, and what problems does it solve?
Yeah, and again, one of the advantages of having a long-term relationship with customers is that you get to be almost have a seat at the table around some of the practical day-to-day problems. One of those was this little bit of dirt that is in the front of a lot of warehouses called a loading dock, and it turns out that that little bit of dirt is at the heart of a vast network of supply chain partners, whether they be carriers or suppliers or drivers, even buyers on the other side, or perhaps their own customers. And we saw that and recognized that in order to satisfy that network, we really needed a product a bit like, I'll call it like a social media product that allowed people to dimension the network and then interact with it. And that's really what MobileDoc is. So it allows authorized parties, whether it be a carrier or a supplier or either, to make bookings at facilities in accordance to the operational rules at that facility. And so it is a network effect that kicks in. So people like a lot of warehouses like Coca-Cola and the Iconic and these sorts of people. But this problem also exists in non-traditional markets like the city. And if I mention the Sydney Opera House, everyone knows what that is. they have a loading dock and have exactly the same problem. So we're looking at this vast network now that is using mobile dock. And what it means is that we can identify inefficiencies in the network that you don't often see if you just look at one particular sort of relationship there. So yeah, we're very excited by that, and that's now a separate business.
Yeah, so you're talking about sort of solving problems like congestion, and it sort of sounds a bit like the invention everyone was waiting for and didn't know it. So how does it reduce congestion, and also tell us like about how mobile.com prioritizes electric vehicles, because while we hate to see a diesel truck idling, we can't allow electric trucks to idle either. I mean, they could run out of charge and cause chaos for the queue.
Well, I think one of the nice things is that mobile dock works at a very operational level, so it works on a day-to-day basis. And one of the symptoms that we often see is congestion, where unconstrained vehicles can just turn up at a facility and expect either to pick up or to deliver or to do something. Without any kind of coordination, then the chances of long-term congestion, which drives idling time, it drives demurrage, it drives all kinds of other kinds of waste, is a very real risk. With mobile dock, people get a confirmed time slot that is available in accordance with the rules and the capabilities of the sites, and they get that time slot dynamically. So as soon as they request it, if there's one available, they're able to select the portfolio that is available, for example. But its real effect is to iron out that, I guess, that wave effect that comes in. Most vehicles want to get in left unconstrained. Everyone wants to get into a facility early. They all kind of get that message. So it's not uncommon to see big queues of trucks in front of facilities in the morning. But by giving a guaranteed time slot, we're able to meter that out, and avoid the congestion before it even starts. I think the other big area from a waste perspective is because I can set the rules in terms of how I want to run the facility. You mentioned electric vehicles before, and we're able to prioritize or give a wider set of availabilities to electric vehicles than to diesel vehicles. That's not saying no, it just means we've got different rules to admit vehicles. And in the city, in peak hour, for example, it's much easier to have an electric vehicle coming through the traffic than a diesel vehicle from an emissions perspective. If you do need a diesel vehicle, then you can come through at when traffic's flowing a little better. So I think it gives us a way to enact policy, and I think that's what's really exciting, as a lot of customers now are beginning to really look at electric delivery vehicles seriously. There are some options on the market at the moment that are making their way onto roads, so it's more than an idea. And I think it's a very exciting time for us.
This week that we're talking, like today, is the one when the Australian Bureau of Meteorology has declared the weather system El Nino, which brings hot, dry, drought conditions to Australia. Meanwhile, in New York, where the UN Sustainable Development Goals Summit was being held, some 220 scientists have published an open letter in the New York Times for Australia to ban new coal mines. Elsewhere, cries for more and faster action to combat climate change accelerated. I'm just wondering, are you getting more interest and inquiry as time goes by in your circles when businesses come to you for assistance? Is there a sense of urgency to improve their sustainability metrics?
Look, that's a great question. I think that is it's definitely an item now. It's an agenda item. It's a board item, actually. So whatever decisions are being made, how it affects the sustainability measures or objectives is something that gets talked about all the time. In our route optimization practice, that's code for doing more with less. So can I do the same work with 3 less vehicles, or can I deliver a different type of service to reduce my overall kilometres or hours on the road? All of those kind of sustainability measures are definitely being recorded now. We even are able to, predict what sort of carbon emissions we're going to have based on a particular routing policy. So that is definitely on the agenda. I think we're in an interesting point at the moment where there's a very strong will to enact those kinds of policies. In terms of the supply, though, there are still plenty of diesel vehicles on the road. There's still plenty of, infrastructure is lagging in terms of getting wide-scale electric deployment, but it is absolutely coming down the path. So right now we are doing modelling or simulation work to see what that future might look like. It's interesting that there's some practical implications of all of that. Right now, electric vehicles don't have unlimited range. When you need to recharge them, that's an issue through the day. There's some vehicles on the road right now that are doing a morning run and then waiting for 3 hours and then doing an afternoon run, which is quite different to the way it currently works. There are companies around. I will call out Janus Electric as a great example, who an Australian company who have developed swappable batteries for large scale delivery vehicles. Now, again, that's purely designed to minimise that time when that asset is off the road. So it is developing very fast. There's more solutions coming on the market every day, and it's a very exciting time, I have to say.
Studies show a huge cohort of fleets, though, are yet to do anything. For example, adopt telematics or route optimization. So I was just thinking, we talk about the EV transition because it's not something that can be done overnight. I mean, if it was done overnight, it would cause a massive one-off escalation in emissions as all the new tech and products, got produced. But stay with me. I mean, what I'm sort of trying to get to and what I'm thinking is if there is something a fleet could do very quickly to cut emissions, what would it be?
Yeah, so you're quite right. It's definitely not an overnight thing. These sorts of changes we're talking about, in fact, just the move to electric it's an emotional discussion, but it's also an infrastructure discussion around how that's going to work on a day-to-day basis. But what you are seeing is a pattern of activity that is definitely moving in that direction. I mentioned route optimization. There is an increased. We are seeing an increased interest in route optimization. Given I've got this fleet, how do I make it work harder, or how do I make it more efficient? That's absolutely something that's happening right now. Secondly, I think if you look at the telematics piece, we're partnered with a company called Geotab, which basically displays pretty much everything that the engine management system knows. That's important for current emissions control to identify, harsh braking or bad driver behaviour, where there's harsh acceleration or harsh braking, which again is a less efficient way to drive. But also they're looking at what they call EV routing or electric vehicle routing. If you are driving a vehicle, then one of the new pieces of information that comes out of the telematics unit is, well, just what's my range? One thing we know is that the manufacturers of electric vehicles they'll quote a range that people can look at and look up, but the practical reality is it depends on the load and the temperature of the outside and the driving conditions to determine, well, what actually can I do today? And Geotab have made great advances on helping organisations with electric vehicles now understand that.
I have a few business bywords that are used in our industry these days, and I wanted to run a couple by you and just ask you to tell us what it means to you and your business. So the first one is optimization. What is that all about?
I hate that word. It's a really annoying word. Look, it's really important, but at its heart, it is, and we do sell optimization systems. The reason I hate it is that most optimization systems are there to balance constraints. In other words, and there are all types of constraints in the fleet world. The road network that I can use is a constraint. If I have a hazardous load, for example, I can't use all the roads that are available on the network there. I can't use the tunnels, for example. I've got customers, some can take a large truck, some can take only a small truck. I have time windows. And they're all kind of what we call the hard constraints out there. But there's also policy, and the policy piece is, well, given I have all of these, I've got all these orders and I've got all these vehicles, and somehow I have to develop an optimum plan. The real question is, what's optimum? What does optimum mean to each organization? And there's not one answer. The reality is I can give hundreds of optimal solutions depending on what you're trying to achieve. Am I trying to minimize kilometers? Am I minimizing the fleet? Am I trying to maximize the service? All of these policy constraints are actually the hardest ones to sort of communicate and to explain to any kind of optimizer, but also we need to get that clear signal out of most organizations. And when it comes to sustainability, I have an objective to minimize my carbon emissions, for example, but should I do that at the expense of customer service? Or, does that mean I need to, re-engineer the fleet? These sorts of things are where this word optimization becomes really interesting.
Oh, you really showed your consultant's hat there. The other sort of byword was reverse logistics.
Yeah, it's yes, apologies for that. It is an occupational hazard. However, reverse logistics again is a really interesting take on sustainability. Some people also refer to it as the circular economy. If I'm selling you a product, then I also have to take some responsibility for bringing back the waste that product might have created. The easiest thing to see out in the world right now are things like pallets or stillages or some sort of packaging that's available there, where it's an expectation that I should pick up the remnants of what I've delivered. We also see it in people in the white goods industry, for example, where I just don't want to sell you a washing machine. I'll sell you the washing machine, but I'll also add a promise to pick up whatever you're trying to get rid of, whether it's defunct or not, or so forth. So I'll bring back product rather than just assuming that I'm just going to be sending product out. That has some implications for obviously what sort of routes or what sort of jobs we give every vehicle every day. But it's also important in terms of how we account for the sustainability of that operation, and how do we the fact that we've collected it, that's one thing, but now I've got to dispose of it. So how do I do that? So I think that's something that we're also seeing a lot of businesses now trying to get better at.
Earlier you mentioned that Geotab is like maybe you would call it a partner, or you're using their services, but who else do you partner with or collaborate with to provide the services that you do?
Yes, one of the fundamentals in setting Bestrane up was a recognition that there's lots of smart technologies and applications out there right now. So part of our Bestrane model was to identify who they were, develop a relationship with them so that we could essentially market, sell, implement, and support whatever we did on a long-term basis. And we've been probably most successful with a company called the Descartes Systems Group. They're based in headquartered in Waterloo, but have operations all over the world. But when it comes to Australia, we manage a lot of their business in what we call the routing, mobile, and telematics space. Other companies like RouteSmart, they're very good at creating optimized solutions for what we call dense routing problems. So problems that involve maybe 300, 400, 500 stops on a particular route. You give that kind of problem to a lot of optimizing technologies, and they really don't know what to do with it. But Route Smart is excellent when it comes to that.
And another snippet that was interesting when we talked the other day was about artificial intelligence, AI, and how it's being used in transport. And you started talking a bit about the routing algorithm. Can you talk about those topics here?
Yeah, sure. No technology discussion is complete without AI and machine learning and these sort of quite topical spaces. Look, I think there's no doubt that in the current environment, there's more data available at a more granular level more often from more sources. So, for example, there are some vehicles running around right now that have 7 different SIM cards in them, just communicating, right, telling various systems where they are, what they're doing, how long they've got to run, and so forth. And so there's an enormous volume of data that's out there. Most of the effort around certainly artificial intelligence and machine learning is to consume that data and sort of understand or derive some insights to it. A really simple example might be what we call geocoding. When we're trying to plan a vehicle, we have to understand, well, where's that vehicle going? If I look at an address, then I'll get a latitude, longitude, and there's plenty of services that will offer that kind of piece. But that's often not where the driver goes. The driver that might be where the end delivery is, but the driver needs to park somewhere. If they're lucky, they can park out the front, but moreover, particularly in the city, more likely is that they need to find a loading zone or a place to park that is not where the geocode or the customer geocode has originated. Now, with machine learning, we know that. Like, we know where the vehicles are stopped. And if we know that they're stopped 3 or 4 times in the same spot to service a customer down the road, we know that from a routing point of view, where the customer's located is one thing, but where I need to park is the most important thing. And we can do that automatically now. That's a really interesting simple example of how machine learning can be used on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Thanks for your time today, Dave. It was really nice to meet you this week, and I wish you all the best at Bestrane.
Oh, look, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And one just closing comment on sustainability. There is no silver bullet to this. But it is a journey, and as it turns out, there's lots of initiatives that are taking place right now, and I think we'll see all of those start to accelerate.
You've been listening to Fleet News Group podcast. It was edited and produced by Isabella Fiorentino. You can follow us on Spotify. Just search for Fleet News Group. We're also on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. Our website is fleetnewsgroup.com, where you can get all of our stories, videos and podcasts. Until next time, drive safely and take care.